You know what, guys? The Cowboys have the talent to reach the NFC Championship Game this season, but something is holding them back, and it's not what most people think. Everyone keeps pointing at the defense, and yeah, the defense needs work, but that's not where this story starts. The real problem runs deeper than that, and once I walk you through it, I think you're going to see exactly what needs to happen for this team to make a real run. What's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. All right, so before we talk sacks, before we talk rookies, before we talk wide receivers or offensive tackles, we have to start with the people who are actually building this team. Because look, the path to the NFC Championship doesn't start on the field, it starts in that front office. Now, here's something I think a lot of people still get wrong. Jerry Jones is the face of this franchise, always has been, probably always will be, but is he the one making the day-to-day football decisions? Honestly, not really. And I think deep down, a lot of Cowboys fans have known this for a while. Like, there was a time when everybody was sitting around going, man, if Jerry would just step back and let Steven run things, this team would be different. We said that. I said that. A lot of us did.
So here we are, Stephen Jones and Will McClay. Those are the guys running this thing on a daily basis. And I mean, if you watched any behind-the-scenes footage of the draft, you saw it firsthand. You saw Steven on the phone, calling teams, getting turned down, coming back, grinding it out, and eventually getting the deal done. He's the one calling other teams. He's the one offering packages. He gets told no, which, honestly, that's tough. Jerry would never let that land on him publicly, but Steven takes it, keeps pushing, and gets it done. And I thought some of what Steven did recently was genuinely encouraging, like the moves to trade up and get Caleb Downs, and then trade down to land Malachi Lawrence. Both of those made Steven look good. Both of those showed some level of real football thinking, not just gut feeling or PR management. But here's where I pump the brakes a little, because Steven learned everything from Jerry. At the end of the day, who did he grow up watching? Who shaped his philosophy? And yeah, you can point to the last decade and see Steven picking up more and more influence, more and more say in how things go, but there's still that tendency, that same conservative free agency mindset, where they just will not go out and spend the big bucks on proven guys. They don't want to overpay. And I get it, I understand the logic, but it's also cost them. Jerry still comes in, right? He doesn't disappear. He shows up when a deal is about to get done. He's the guy who walks in at the end and says, okay, did we look at all the angles here? Did we do our homework? And in some ways, that outside perspective is actually useful. But when you're on the clock in the draft and Jerry starts doing his thing, talking, rambling, that's where it gets dangerous. There was nearly a situation where they almost missed out on Caleb Downs because of exactly that. You can't have that, not in those moments.
Now, Will McClay. Look, I like Will McClay. I think he's genuinely good at what he does. But here's the tricky part about evaluating him. It's almost impossible to cleanly credit or blame him for anything because of how collaborative this organization runs the draft. Like, think about it. The head coach has input, the coordinators have input, multiple voices in that room all pulling in different directions. So when a pick hits, who gets the credit? When a pick busts, who takes the L? And that's a real problem when you're trying to figure out if your personnel department is actually working. McClay's job is basically to be the bridge between the scouts and the coaches. He gets the ingredients from the coaching staff, then goes and makes the stew. The coach comes in back in January and says, this is the type of corner I want. This is the type of linebacker I want. Go find those guys. And McClay and his scouts go do that. But if the coach is handing him bad ingredients to begin with, you end up with bad results. And we've seen that. There have been some rough drafts lately, no question. You look at some of those picks and you go, yeah, that didn't work out. And then you look at something like Will McClay standing on the table for Mozzie Smith. That's an L that you can point directly at him. That one's on him. And look, since nobody's going anywhere, Jerry's not leaving, Steven's not leaving, McClay's not leaving, the real question becomes, can you get better execution inside the structure that already exists? Can the coaching staff be good enough evaluators to help McClay and his scouts find the right players? Because in Dallas, more than almost anywhere else in the league, it really matters whether your coaches know what they're looking at. When the coaches have that much input in the draft room, they better be right.
Okay, so now that we know who's running this thing and what the limitations are, let me get into the actual football formula. Because here's the thing, the easiest path to the NFC Championship is not asking Dak Prescott to be Superman. It's not expecting the front office to suddenly flip a switch and become aggressive in free agency. None of that. The easiest path is actually pretty straightforward if you break it down. It comes down to health, defense, pass rush, rookies, and the offensive line not becoming a weekly disaster. Let's start with the most obvious one, health. Honestly, this might be the single biggest factor, because the talent at the top of this roster, it's real. The issue has always been depth. When starters go down, this team has been exposed badly over the last several years. Think back to 2023. They didn't have backup linebackers, and it showed up against Green Bay Packers. It showed up during the season against Buffalo and Miami too, but that Green Bay game is where it finally caught up to them in a real way. And the last 2 seasons, injuries have just decimated them on both sides of the ball. So, if the starters stay healthy, this team looks completely different. That's not a small thing. That's everything. Next, the defense has to be a top 12 defense. That's the standard, because I think if you get there, you're in the postseason conversation. And a lot of what gets you to a top 12 defense is the pass rush. Last season, the Cowboys totaled 35 sacks. That was bottom 10 in the league. Bottom 10. That's not good enough, guys. You need to be around 45 sacks to even be hovering near the top 10 in that category. And here's the thing about the pass rush. It's not just about the number. It's about when the pressure is coming. Because there were pressures last year that technically counted in the stats, but quarterbacks weren't even worried about them. Jalen Hurts stood in the pocket forever. Caleb Williams stood in the pocket forever. And yeah, eventually maybe somebody got home, but by then the play was already made. That's not pass rush. That's a statistic. You need pressure in 3 seconds or less. You need pressure that actually affects what the quarterback is doing, not pressure that shows up on a spreadsheet after the play is dead.
So who's going to bring that? Not from Quinnen Williams. He's the anchor. He's already there. But someone else has to step up. Maybe it's Malachi Lawrence making an impact. Maybe it's Donovan Eziraku. Rashawn Gary could factor in, James Houston, Sam Williams. Some combination of those guys has to give this defense real juice off the edge. The secondary with depth has improved. If Siobhan Revel is healthy and Darren Bland returns to form, those are solid starting corners. But I don't think that secondary is going to carry this defense by itself. They need the pass rush to make that secondary look good. One feeds the other. Now the third piece, rookies have to produce. And I'm not just talking about one guy. Non-Caleb Downs rookies have to matter this season. Look, when you study the teams that make that jump, teams that go from okay to legitimate contenders, almost every single one of them is getting solid production from guys they didn't have to pay big money. Cheap young players filling real roles. That's how you survive when you've got expensive stars eating up cap space. Malachi Lawrence needs to make some kind of impact. Jayshon Barham needs to contribute. LT Overton has a chance to be a solid run defender. These guys can't just be roster filler. They have to give you something, because on a team with expensive contracts all over the place, you need your rookies to carry their weight.
And then there's the offense. Look, Dak is still Dak. The talent at wide receiver is real. And if both of the top wide receivers are producing at around 1,200 yards each, that's a dangerous offense. That puts a ton of stress on opposing defenses and opens up everything underneath and down the field. That kind of production from the receiver room means Dak doesn't have to force anything. It means the offense has a real identity, a real strength it can lean on when things get tight in January. So, guys, here's how I see it when you put it all together. The Cowboys don't need a total organizational overhaul. That's not happening. But what this team needs is better execution inside the structure that already exists, smarter draft decisions, better rookie contributions, and on the field, they need health, a defense that actually pressures the quarterback early and often, and an offense that stops beating itself.